Welcome back, everyone. You get to hear from me again for a second, but I promise we're going to hear from these wonderful people on stage a little bit more than me. So I talked to you a little earlier today about, if you're here for the product session, about Advocate, the product we're offering, but I want to talk to people that are really out there pushing advocacy with their customer bases. I think it's something that we've probably all participated in a little bit as a customer at some point in our lives. We've advocated for something, but I think there's a big question about how do we make this work in practice for our businesses. So instead of me butchering introductions, we are gonna ask each of our panelists to give us a quick introduction about themselves, and then also a little bit of background as to how they came to the space of advocacy. So we will start with Anira.
Hi, I'm Anira. I am currently working at Capital.com, enjoying the roller coaster world of trading and investing. I've worked across the partnership economy in agencies, brand side, publisher side, and probably like most of you, I've spent most of my career working in cultivating advocacy through partnerships with brands and publishers and creators. But more recently, the last couple of years, I've been exploring referral marketing or customer referrals, looking closer to home to harness the advocacy from our existing customer base in order to use that as a growth lever. So that's why I'm here today.
Wonderful, thank you. Megan, we'll go to you.
Fantastic. Hi, everyone. Megan Sullivan. I lead our global customer reference marketing program at Google Workspace. It's part of the larger Google organization. So all of the apps that you love, like Gmail, Google Docs, Google Meet, Chat, I know you all love them and use them, of course. I have been at Google for about 5 years, and my entire time there, I've been doing advocacy and reference marketing for Google Cloud. And then almost 2 years ago, I shifted over to Google Workspace, so mainly in the B2B marketing space. But of course, Google Workspace is also a consumer product that I'm sure all of us have Gmail accounts here in this room. So there's a lot of user stories that are fantastic to tell. I've spent the majority of my career in reference marketing and advocacy marketing, but before that, I actually was in sales. I was an inside salesperson. Figuring out how to make your customer successful and how to make your sales team successful. But I really love to talk to customers about their success and help them tell their story. And that's when I stumbled upon referencing. And it's just this, well, first of all, you get to work with happy customers all day long, where in sales, it's not always the case. But that shift from being able to empower customers to tell their stories about why they love your products really hit home for me, and I've been doing it ever since. So thanks for having me.
Wonderful.
Hello, everybody. I'm Keith. I'm back at IPX. It's been a while. So I'm Keith. I run Zors LLC. It's a kind of like a marketing strike team consulting group. We come and we take you from partnership level 0 or 1 or whatever to level 5, and we do this kind of embed and build these functions for affiliate, influencer, and referrals for clients. I've been in this space for 20 years, oh God. And some of the most interesting things have been places like Square, Uber, Nextdoor, and others where I built affiliate, referrals, influence, and the like. And it's all about, as a marketer, I'm a storyteller first and a salesperson second. And it's about telling the story, but the story comes in many places, in many levels, large and small, and being able to kind of tie referrals and that customer advocacy, as you say, into this bigger ecosystem and create a whole self-perpetuating feedback loop, a flywheel, where we turn all the happiest customers into those partners that actually drive the growth of the business and capturing their growth too.
Now we heard both referral programs and reference programs there, and I'm a simple bear, so maybe we should start with just like a definition for a second. So Keith, maybe you could kick us off with what do you think a referral program means when you say that?
It's interesting. Conceptually, a referral program is take the value that your customers internalize, turn it into something they evangelize. make them market for you. It is a double-sided marketing channel where you have to market to them, help them see that they got the value, and let them market for you to their friends who come in, and they're then an order of magnitude more likely to refer their friends. It's all it really is in the end, is that story of value that they crystallize, go, oh, that's awesome. You say, isn't that great? Tell your friends too.
And Megan, maybe you can help us with the reference program. Like, where do you see that is sit?
Absolutely. I mean, the referral programs and reference programs, whether that's in the consumer market or in the B2B market, like we are for Google Workspace and Google Cloud, the word reference is there because that idea of, we love the product, talk about why you love the product. It's in essence the same, but it's a little bit different in what I do, where I'll start with my team motto. I know we were talking about this out in the hallway earlier. So my team motto is, anything that we can say through our marketing, our customers can say better. And we really believe that, right? We're always going to have marketing campaigns. We're going to lead with our Google Workspace messaging. But my job is to make sure that the customer's voice is in all of that messaging. It's at our events, it's on our social media, it's on our domain, right? So that when folks are thinking, is Google Workspace for me? Is Google Workspace for my team and my organization? I want them to be able to look not just to our marketing and our product page and all the amazing features that we have, but I want them to be able to look to their fellow peers in the space. I want them to look at someone in their industry who's been successful and say, yeah, I want that too, or I can do that too, or I know I can make the switch because this organization is just like me and they're successful. So in essence, you're finding a product that you know and love, and you're figuring, hey, that can work for me too, because my friend referred it to me. In essence, it's the same. Hey, my fellow CIO told me that they're having an amazing time with Workspace. But when it comes to a reference program, we're working with our existing customers, and we're empowering them to tell their story through an exchange of a different kind of value. We're enabling them to be thought leaders in the space. We're enabling them to shout from the rooftops in the marketplace about why this important investment is really paying off for them. We're enabling them to maybe attract top IT talent because they're showcasing they're investing in the top IT tools. So it's a different exchange of value, not monetarily, but more intangible value, but still in essence referring others to also join the workspace community.
It's interesting because you said there is a different exchange of value, and I think a lot of us here are used to a very crisp exchange of value when it comes to our kind of partnerships. But maybe you can kind of help us understand what kind of impact on the business do you see from this kind of a reference program?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just talked a little bit about some of the value that a customer might get from reference marketing. And that pitch I just gave to you all is a pitch I give on calls with customers day in and day out, because we really believe, and I'm sure you all believe the same, that reference marketing, referral marketing, advocacy is a two-way street, right? There's clearly some value for us, and we'll get to that in a moment, but we really want to be able to articulate, hey, what is the value for you, customer? You're going to give us some time, you're going to give us effort, you're going to go on a limb, and you're going to speak highly about us authentically and truthfully, but you're going to talk about the value that our organization is bringing to you. So we want to make sure that it's clear the value that they're going to get out of it, and we have a whole sets of documentation that we can share with our customers about that. But there's clear value in it for us, for our organizations, right? I mentioned that we're going to have folks from different industries, across regions, across segments, making sure that we don't have any gaps in why we are the right tool for you. So each and every time we have a customer join our reference community, every time we do a blog with a customer, have them speak at an event, we're building up our database of proving out our value. And why that's so important is because we're able to then grow more and more with additional customers. Reference customers are helping us close deals. We're adding reference materials into RFPs. We are having customers sit down one-on-one with prospective customers and talk about how they were able to do it and what value that they got out of it, that's clearly helping us in our bottom line. But then it's also helping our brand. It's really proving out that when we say that we help the world's organizations connect, create, and do their best work, again, we're not just saying it through our marketers. Our customers are saying it, and they're saying it better. It's more authentic, it's more real, and it's way more effective, in my opinion.
Wonderful. Keith and Ira, what do you see on the more kind of the referral program side? What do you kind of see as like the impact it has on the businesses you've worked in?
I think it's quite interesting that it's considered a pure play acquisition channel, whereas actually it's a great retention and loyalty driver. You're actually raising the LTV of both the referring client and the referred, and creating that trust and that connection between the three of you. I think we were speaking about that, weren't we?
Yep.
Just in the hallway. There's real inextricable value for each party.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, it doesn't have to be super monetary either. I mean, so often the best incentive is just give them more of the product and let them give more to their friend. And so now you see we give them more of the product itself. It's not cash, and all of a sudden they're using more of your product. They're more bought in. Their LTV goes up. Their friend's LTV goes up. Their friend is an order of magnitude more likely to refer. And so we see this whole feedback loop as we go, just by being sharp about how we incentivize. And it's all about understanding what matters to them. That kind of aha when a customer uses your product and goes, oh, and you go, see, wasn't that cool? And here's the next thing. Here's the next part of the product that you should be trying. Get that and tell your friends, and they get it too, and all of a sudden they're even more bought in. And we're basically pulling them on this journey through them giving their friends something. That's the best motivator. When they're happy and they can give that same happiness to a friend, they'll go with you every step so much more easily.
Yeah, and I think because it's so authentic, it has such a high conversion rate.
Oh, totally.
So for us, it's got a 50% higher conversion rate than any other marketing channel. It is 3 times higher ROAS than any other paid channel. So it really does pay for itself because the stories are authentic, because you're tapping into genuine advocacy. It's a really powerful channel that we can't ignore.
Exactly, and it's like the other thing too is it ties into this whole ecosystem. Like I look at all of the referrers and go, how many of these should become influencers and partners and the rest? It all ties in, and we can use that ecosystem. It drives more value, and so we end up with something that becomes massively critical to the business just by virtue of just prioritizing it, being smart about how we do it.
Absolutely.
You know, it's interesting. You're all talking about authenticity, right? But I think that's got to be a fear that people have. That maybe whether it's we're giving you some PR, some press, some coverage, or maybe it's that we're giving you an incentive, a reward. Do you find that does diminish the authenticity, or do you find there's ways to ensure that it maintains authenticity?
I think there's a bell curve. There is a sweet spot in terms of the incentivization. You want to make sure you're not over incentivizing for that acquisition, because if you do, you tip into an audience that possibly isn't there authentically to drive acquisition for you. You're tapping into an audience that's there to make a fast buck. So it's about finding that sweet spot of incentivization, or indeed not having incentivization at all is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it's about making sure that it's not transactional as best you can. It needs to be value-based, the giving. When it's transactional, you get people who look at it as a way to just get something to extract value from you versus giving something to their friend and being rewarded. That lack of, it's again like advocacy too, and like reference. The whole thing is they're going to tell our story better than we ever can.
Right.
Yeah.
As any brand, that's all partnerships is. They're more trusted, they have a better bond with their audience, they can tell your story more effectively. Just happens to be one person telling a few friends and millions of them versus a couple hundred partners telling their audiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it comes to authenticity from a reference marketing and a sales reference perspective, especially in the B2B space, authenticity is key because we have to make sure that customers are telling their real story. When we interview them, we're interviewing them to find what are those hard-hitting metrics, what value have you gotten out of it. But sometimes in those interviews, we learn some challenges that the customers have. Very often we help them solve those challenges, so they're a great part of the story. But if there are additional challenges to be solved, that's why you create a reference and advocacy community. So, well, this is the part of the story that we're sharing publicly, the success story, but we have this upcoming community event where there are others with that similar challenge that are getting a sneak peek into the product roadmap, that are getting one-on-one time with our developers. And again, this is the value that we're bringing back to them, not that tangible value, not, of course, a monetary exchange of value, but that almost intangible value of, hey, this is value for you. We want you to be successful. Thank you for sharing your success story. However, for those areas where there's still room for optimization, how can we support you because you've supported us?
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I think as we talk about these programs, we're trying to make sense as to what they are. We're trying to make sense of the value that they can get from the businesses and the importance of authenticity. But as we start to dive into these, what are the key considerations that we really need to be looking at? Keith, I know you were already touching there a little bit on the incentive structures, but maybe we can just dig in a little bit onto what those key considerations around for you at least for our incentives.
Yeah, it's again, understanding the right kind of value to give, what are the moments, but also structuring your program, giving enough data to the platform to be able to make decisions. The key one too is to say, how do I know what were those aha moments? How do I make sure product is looking at this and going, where are people seeing value? Let's prompt, let's be methodical, let's market to our customers to turn them into advocates. But the other part is how we even structure the program. We don't want someone who's going to send 1,000 customers in. That's not an advocate, that's an influencer, that's an affiliate. We have to create ways to structure it so that we get the right people in. It's non-transactional, it's the true advocacy of the product by the people that value it, and then plug it into the rest of the ecosystem, the organization, so it's a component of that. And it's also, don't make it too complex either. Complexity is the enemy. So many companies, I'm like, why are you doing these things? It's not needed. Simplify, be smart, methodical, and strategic, and then it just does this.
I just want to double click on something you said there before we jump over here to Anira. But you're talking casually about working with product. Maybe you could just give us some little words of wisdom on how important that is to work with the product/experience.
Yeah. It's a tough one in organizations, especially big ones. Is it a product thing? Is it marketing? It's both. Product has to be there, delivering ways to market to customers to turn them to advocates. Marketing is marketing channel, it's growing the business, and it has to be responsible for leveraging that. The two teams have to work together, have to be organized and in sync. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Done.
Yeah.
Anira, I know you had a point there.
I think a common misconception with referral programs can be that you just build it and they will come. You actually have to market it to your customers. You have to let them know that it's there and that it's valuable to them. And ideally at moments of pleasure. So when they're experiencing joy, when they're happy with your brand, when they're flooded with dopamine, you hit them with the referral program because that's when they're going to advocate for you.
I think one of the areas that probably both of you, Megan and Ira, know about is working inside of maybe regulated or more bureaucratic type organizations. I'm sure that's probably not the right word, but you can correct me. But maybe we can speak to that because I think these programs need a lot of support and need to follow a lot of rules. So maybe we have some lessons there.
Yeah, absolutely. Working in trading and investing, heavily regulated. I was running 22 schemes concurrently at the point that I left my previous company. And so a key consideration for me, because regulation can change almost overnight, is to make sure that you're working with a tech provider that is agile and flexible and you can make changes quickly, because at the end of the day you want to ensure that your brand is safe and that you can respond to changes in environment, and whether that's regulation or in fact changes in consumer behavior, making sure that you're testing and learning. Going back to that point about you can't just build it and they will come. It isn't a box ticking exercise. You want to be able to see what resonates with the customers, and that might differ by market and by customer cohort even. So whilst it's really important to maintain simplicity in a regulated environment in order to extract as much value from the channel as possible, you also need to make sure that you are providing the incentives that are available in that market. So that would be why we had 22 schemes running concurrently. That must sound wild, but it's because in some markets we can incentivize the referrer, or in some markets we can incentivize both the referrer and the referee, and in some markets we can't incentivize the tool. But instead of meeting the regulators in the strictest market and then hampering your success by doing so, actually having different schemes in different markets allowed us to fully extract the value. It was a bit of a shit show that I inherited because we built the technology it was built on when I inherited the channel was not ideal, not flexible, but I have since jumped ship. I'm the competitor, sorry, not sorry, and I get the chance to do it all again from scratch with the right partner. So yeah, it's been a massive learning for me to make sure that the tech provider that you work with, when you're building the foundations, is the partner that can meet your needs.
Yeah, and what is it like doing this inside of an organization like Google?
Yeah, Google obviously is a massive organization, and we have so many different product areas. So I think of Google Cloud, I think of Google Workspace. We're just one company inside with many different companies inside a large company. I'm certain some of us work at organizations like that are in the room today. Two things that both of you touched on. One, it's the tooling that you have. You cannot run successful marketing programs, regardless of what that marketing program or organization or team is, without the right tools. So making sure that you're investing in the right tools to be able to create a good experience for your customer, for your advocate, but also have a good experience internally. One, for your own sanity, for your own team. Very often, these teams are very small, but there's a large demand on us. So we have to have the right tools. You touched on product. Being really close with your cross-functional teams, these are your customers, right? We have our external customers that are referencing for us and advocating for us, but I often think of my product marketing teams, my sellers, those are my customers. I need to onboard references to also make them successful so that we can indeed insert the customer voice into all of what they do, into their email campaigns, into their conversations with customers if they're a seller, and then for product. To be able to demonstrate that our customers are using this individual product well, but without being connected to product and product marketing, how am I meant to know what stories to tell? So I'm not just creating blogs about customers for blog's sake, right? It has to be tied to our product messaging. It has to be tied to our demand gen campaigns and goals. My OKRs are directly aligned with the OKRs for the business. It can't just be get 100 references, right? And I think that that's where being super, super aligned to your cross-functional stakeholders and making sure they're bought in and understand your goals and objectives, that alignment is key. And so they can also invest in the tools that you need. So it all comes full circle.
And then that's a great setup for the next question, which is really, what do we need to consider when we are looking at tooling for these kind of programs? What are those key things we need to be looking for when we're setting those things up? Keith, I'll throw it to you there first, buddy.
Having broken many platforms in the past, it's reliability, it's stability, but it's also consistency. The enemy of any referral program, full stop, is breakage. When you make a promise to a customer that they will get something and they don't get it. And that can be a technical issue. It can be a structural issue where there's too many hoops to jump through for your incentive. That is another enemy. Reduce complexity, create stability, don't break. I think that's the one I found at scale again and again and again is the single most important thing to me, because that's where almost every problem comes from, is when we set an expectation with an advocate and don't fulfill it. That broken promise, that burns them for good. That's the one I always look at. Everything else on top, the analytics features, the rest, the ability to structure programs, that is all a second order effect from that consistent nature of the platform.
And Naira, what do you think?
Flexibility is the number one for me because of the regulatory environment. I need to make changes quickly. and also having the kind of protections in place, whether that's, fraud in gaming, particularly if you're still trying to find that sweet spot in terms of incentivization. You want to know that if you tip over into the audience type where it's maybe not authentic referrals, that you've got that protection in place. So yeah, they're the things for me, I think.
Well, yeah, I know you were talking a little bit about tooling there, but what's kind of the crucial tooling for you, the crucial things to consider in your programs?
It has to enable you to scale. That's essentially the foundation, because again, very often marketing organizations are smaller organizations compared to others, depending on it happens a lot in the tech space. And often reference organizations are either a part of another team and there's just one person, or a very, very small team expected to do a lot. And whether that's a reference team or any of the teams that you all are on, I'm sure you can relate. So having a tool that enables you to scale, that enables your cross-functional stakeholders to maybe self-serve a little bit, obviously with lots of rules and regulations around that, but also to enable that scalability helps you to just have more impact. And then again, create a better experience for your internal teams, for yourself, and then also ultimately for your customer.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oh.
Yeah, efficiency is really key, isn't it? I think Impact did such a great job for us. We transformed affiliate marketing and influencer marketing, and then it was quite a shock to the system inheriting this technology where there was so much manual intervention and so much labor that went into these schemes that you want to avoid the pain points, right? Because you want these channels to live and to breathe and be invested in. And if you're creating a painful experience for people internally, whether it's stakeholders or the boots on the ground, then it's going to be difficult to scale it.
Perfect. We're running near the end of the panel here, so I just want to go to a couple rapid fire questions. No, I have not. No. So the first question I just go is, what's the biggest pitfall that you see people make when running these kind of programs? Biggest mistake?
I've said it already, but just expecting people to advocate for you without telling them that you've got this advocate program. You need to remind them, and at moments of pleasure. That's the kind of key thing for me.
You can't tick a box.
Exactly.
It is not that. That is a mistake. And that's when I see again and again, we often come in and fix that, where it's just a ticked box. And that's, something that can be 10, 15% of your revenue could be that, is not a box to tick. That's the one pitfall. The other one is just not prioritizing it at all. Even if you don't want it to be that, and you don't make it important to the company and say, we're gonna live this thing, we're gonna make it important, that's the other problem. Because you can want it to be bigger, but if you don't commit, that's the other issue.
Yeah. I think for us, and I know we talked about that on some of our prep calls, is I have a golden rule, which is that we work for our customers, they do not work for us. That's glaringly obvious in the B2B space, right? But especially from a reference perspective, we can't just expect, just because you're a customer, you want to be a reference, or just because you are having a really great experience and you were a reference once, doesn't mean that you want to be a reference again. So just understanding that when we're making asks of our customers, keeping in mind that they are indeed customers, and it is our job to make them happy, to make them successful, and they have to have as good as the experience was when we were selling to them and onboarding them, has to be that experience when they're being a reference.
That's a really good point.
And to that, just to expand on both of you there, it's about making sure we remember what's important to the customer should be our priority.
Right.
Yes.
And just again with that is, they are the priority. They are the ones whose story that we want to tell, that's what tells our story too.
Totally.
Exactly that.
Last question here. If you were starting a program from scratch and you were trying to get your boss on board, what is the big thing that you'd want to know then that you now know? What is that big piece that would get them on board to support you in your project, do you think?
I would think one of the things, and probably a lot of us know this statistic, it comes from the Challenger sale. I think our customers have made up their mind almost, I think it's 92 to 94% before they even talk to a seller or maybe engage with that contact us or whatever the avenue or channel is for you all. So we have to already be out there telling our story, showcasing why our product is right for them in this organic, authentic way before they engage with our domain or with our sellers. So just reminding our leadership of that, reminding our sellers of that, and knowing that without references, our marketing is not authentic and our customers won't relate to why they should be using our product.
Makes sense. Keith?
I'd say best one is, when do customers love the product? What's that one moment? When does it happen? The very first time they go, I love this. I want to know what that is, because everything gets built on top of that.
Yeah.